Pretty short lesson today. We almost finished 5.6, but I wanted to leave this little piece to the end here, okay? And so we talked about determining the rate of change. Okay, so the rate of change is simply a way of saying what we're going to learn next, which is slope, which is the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so if you were in science, you might have seen this. Okay, so I wanted to show you down here. Slope is now going to be represented by the letter m. Okay, and we're going to show you the 2-point slope formula. Okay, so the change in y. So that's the change in the vertical motion. We got to remember that. So this is sort of counterintuitive because we're used to having x come first. So I write mine as y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Now the reason why I do it this way is, again, it all comes back to Mr. Anholt in grade 9. Okay, this is the way he taught me. He did it because 1 comes before 2, and it won't matter, but I know in science you often learn it this way, y2 over minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and it really won't matter. So if you learned it this way in science and that's what's stuck in your brain, that's the one you're going to use. What's really important is that the 1s are above each other and the 2s are above each other, right? So it won't really matter, but this is the way I do it just because that's the way I learned it in grade 9. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go back and we're going to look at this question. And it says, a water tank on a farm near Swift Current holds 6,000 liters. Graph A represents the tank being filled at a constant rate. Okay, graph B represents the tank being emptied at a constant rate. And we can see that the slope of this is just not quite as vertical as this one. And that should make sense to you, right? Because when we fill up a bathtub or something like that, it usually takes us a little bit longer. Okay, but when we pull the plug on something, gravity helps us out and the water kind of rushes out. Okay, now things that I want you to realize, this is what we call a positive sloping line, and this is a negative sloping line. And that's not really important right now. It will be in the next unit, but I'm just trying to show you some things. So question A, I put on here just to remind us about some vocabulary we learned at the very beginning of this unit. Identify the independent and the dependent variable. So the independent, remember, is x, the dependent is y. So what's the independent variable? It's time. What's the dependent variable? It is volume in liters. Now we're going to find out, we're going to determine the rate of change, okay, slope here. So what we do is we need to pick 2 points on the graph, and they have to be points that cross like at the corners, okay? Now I'm going to show you what I usually do, okay? If it happens to go through Pooh, the point of origin, I always pick that one, okay? Because that is 0, 0, which is so easy. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what I mean. Point 1, I'm going to say is 0 and 0. And if I pick that, this is my x1 and this is my y1. Why? Because that's what I picked first. That's what makes them the ones. Okay, now I'm just going to make things easy because I hate looking on the inside of a graph. So I would have picked this point right here as my second point. Okay, so here's my first, here's my second. So what are the coordinates of my second point? 120 and 6,000. So point 2 is 120 and 6,000. Now, because of that, that's my x2 and my y2. And now we're going to use the formula. What's the slope? y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. And now we just simply plug it in. What's y1? It was 0. What's y2? It was 6,000. And on the bottom, x1 was 0, of course, and x2 was 120. And we get negative 6,000 over negative 120. And this is when our integer rules come in from grade 9. And I'm just teaching that right now to my grade 9s. Okay, if we have a negative divided by a negative, we are going to get a positive. And when we work that out, we get 50. Okay, so the slope of this line, or the rate of change, is 50. What that means is that this tank is being filled at a rate of 50 liters per minute. That's simply what that means, okay? 50 liters per minute. Okay, now let's go over here and try this one. And I'm going to have to do it on a piece of paper because I did a terrible job of printing out these notes for you, to be quite honest. There's no room. Okay, so again, we're going to pick 2 points. I'm picking this as my first point. I pick the points sort of the way that I read from left to right. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean here. So point 1 is going to be 0 and 6,000. x1, y1. Okay, that's what I picked first. Now I'm going to pick this one as my second point. Okay, and this graph appears to be going up by 20s every single time. So 20, 40, this would be 60 and 0. Okay, so point 2 is 60 and 0. And I always take the time to do this on all of my ramblings. I scratch that out. So how are we going to find the slope? y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. And now we're simply going to plug these in. What was my y1? 6,000. What was my y2? 0. What was my x1? 0. What was my x2? 60. Okay, so now when we work this out, we get 6,000 over negative 60. We're going to get a negative answer, and we're going to come back to that in a minute. Okay, and we're going to get negative 100, which means that because it's falling, right, it's a negative rate. We're losing water at a rate of 100 liters per minute. So it makes sense that it's negative. Okay, so I know it says you try, but we're going to do this together, okay? We're going to choose 2. So now it's the same thing, type of thing. This was a water tank and this is a hot tub. I guess that's just more exciting. Okay, we're going to choose 2 points on the line and we're going to calculate the rate of change, or what we're going to start referring to now as the slope. What do you have to memorize? You have to memorize this formula, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. And when I say memorize it, that's kind of a lie. I'm going to give you a formula sheet anyway. Okay, so choose 2 points. Remember what I said? This one's the easiest. So my first point that I'm going to choose is 0 and 0. So my x1 is 0, my y1 is 0. What's the second point I'm going to pick? This one up here. Now I just want to show you something. You can't pick this point like right here because we're not really sure. We can kind of guesstimate, but we're not going to be completely accurate. So that's what I mean by you have to pick one that crosses at a corner. Okay, so that's my second point. My second point is 80 and 1600. So point 2 is 80 and 1600. x2, y2. And now I'm going to plug in my formula here. y1 was 0 minus 1600. x1 was 0 minus 80, and you get negative 1600 over negative 80, and we know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Oh, and we're going to get a positive 20. So this hot tub is being filled at a rate of 20 liters per minute, okay? And that makes sense because it's positive. Okay, let's do this bottom one now. Now, things that you should realize is that the hot tub is emptying, and it empties rather quickly. You pull the plug on the bottom and it rushes out. So we should get a negative sloping line. Point 1. Point 1 for me is going to be 0 and 1600. x1, y1. Point 2 is going to be down here, okay, and that is 40 and 0. x2, y2. And now we're going to fill in our formula. Oops. Okay, so we're going to get 1600 minus 0. And then on the bottom, we're going to get 0 minus 40. And we're going to get negative 40. And you can see it's working out for us. We should have a negative slope. And when we have a positive divided by a negative, we indeed get a negative answer. And so we're going to get negative 40. So it is rushing out at 40 liters per minute. Okay, that's it for today. I just wanted you to watch that video, go back to your 5.6 assignment. You might have a couple questions to clean up there. Okay, and then we're going to finish off this unit tomorrow. Miss you.